Hi, everyone. My name is Paula, and I am the co host of the Innovation Blueprint. And today we have Ron Ness with us. Ron, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me as your host guest today.
Yeah. Hi, Ron. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into the energy sector and what originally pulled you into this world and kept you there.
I'm a North Dakota native and lived and worked here my entire life, and obviously got out of college and was fortunate to find an opportunity with the state of North Dakota, and then transitioned over to the oil and gas world, and ended up moving to the Petroleum Council, and obviously oil and gas has changed tremendously in the 26 years that I've held this role. Incredible change in terms of what we've seen across the board from technology to wells to the number of great people that I work with. So it's been an interesting and fascinating past 25 years.
Yeah, of course. And tell us more about the North Dakota Petroleum Council.
We are a trade organization that's membership driven. We have over 560 individual companies that are participate in as members in our organization that serve all aspects of the oil and gas industry, from the producers to the pipelines to the midstream companies to the service companies, landmen, mineral owners, royalty owners, law firms, and really just general businesses that do business in with oil and gas companies as well.
Okay, yeah, very interesting. And so you mentioned earlier that you weren't necessarily in the petroleum and gas space. You were just a council member, North Dakota member council. But tell us more how you actually moved into the petroleum space.
Sure, we are. I personally did not have any experience in oil and gas. Didn't grow up in the oil and gas business. I'm more of a political guy, so I understand the ins and outs of government and politics and organizational management and bringing together partners and networks and educating our members. Those are all things that we do here at the Petroleum Council on behalf of our members. They all have businesses to run and operations to take care of daily, and they need somebody to be their spokesperson. They need an organization to kind of collectively bring them together on big issues, on technology advancements, on educational opportunities, community engagement, and of course, uh, state and local government regulatory issues. That's what we do.
Yeah. So do you feel like you're kind of like the middleman bringing everything together and bringing all the different companies as
That's
well?
actually a very good analysis. We are a middleman. We also have a foundation, which is our charitable wing, in which we do public education, and we do uh, student and education of the public and students. We bring together, and then we do conservation and habitat. So, kind of three pillars of our foundation is focused on public education, student engagement, and education, and then conservation and habitat. So that's kind of the fun part of what we get to do. Our members like those things, and those are areas in which we should be supporting and leading.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Tell us about one of those initiatives that you've done, just as an example.
We started a program called Planting for the Future in 2018, and it's basically a program where the state of North Dakota takes some oil and gas tax revenues, puts into a fund called the Outdoor Heritage Fund. The Petroleum Council Foundation applied for a grant with the Outdoor Heritage Fund, and subsequently, with private landowners across North Dakota, as of today, we have planted 710,000 trees for private landowners. We pay for the trees. We have contractors who go out and do the planting in cooperation with the landowners where they want them. They become their trees. They then tend and care for them. We're on our way to 1 million trees by 2030, and not too many organizations anywhere can say they've planted 1 million trees. So that's pretty exciting.
That is pretty exciting. 1,000,000 is a lot of trees, and it's definitely a good way to give back to the community. Um, and obviously, a lot of people have certain opinions about the oil and gas space and some different perceptions of it. But what would you actually say, from your perspective now working in that space, is one of the biggest misconceptions?
Well, I think the biggest misconception is big oil. Big oil is not where the majority of people work in the oil and gas space. We have tens of thousands of North Dakotans. By far, the majority of them work for small companies that provide services to oil companies. Oil companies basically bring the money, the ideas, the concepts, but they work with geologists, they work with all different types of people. Then they work with all these small companies to drill and complete these wells. So the oil and gas industry in North Dakota and everywhere virtually is very much ground based, local based. These employees work for companies that live and work in our communities, and they are our communities. And actually, oil and gas in North Dakota has about an 84% positive approval rating. So just, you know, I think that's a misconception of some that oil and gas is not liked to where it happens. It's not the case in North Dakota. North Dakotans value the opportunities that oil and gas has brought to our state, that value the opportunities for our kids and their kids to have careers and a livelihood here in North Dakota.
Yeah, for sure. And so you're obviously working at the intersection of the policy making, the economics, and the real operational challenges. Where do you see the biggest disconnect between how the industry is perceived and how it's actually functioning from an operational standpoint?
I think from an operations standpoint, you know, the biggest risk for any industry, and we've certainly seen that in North Dakota as other industries have tried to build infrastructure, working with those communities and engaging and having relationships and partnerships with your community, your landowners, your stakeholders. That's something that we have done very well over the past 20 years. I think we've held well over 400 town hall meetings. We have a program called our Bakken Cook Fest. Each year we go into a community where there's oil and gas activity, a small town, and our companies all come and they have a barbecue contest, and it's a huge contest. We do a public education session for everybody that wants to come. There's free barbecue, for games for kids, but most importantly, it's a chance to come there and network with the companies and engage with them. So thousands of people come to these small towns, and that's just one example of the things that you have to do to make sure that your employees are part of the community. uh, we've focused for a long time on encouraging our employees to get involved in the fire department and the school board, in the city government and the local government, and coach the baseball teams and do all those things. And as we've seen families now move into the Bakken region, certainly we are seeing our young people become leaders in those communities. And I think that's so important. Instead of saying I'm from Ohio and living in North Dakota for the last 10 years, we want them to say, no, I'm from Watford City, North Dakota. Then they are true North Dakotans, and they embrace the community and adopt, kind of our culture of the land. The land is critically important in North Dakota. It's what our ancestors all survived on, and it's so critically important here. So, oil and energy and agriculture go together quite well when done right.
Yeah, and actually, kind of what you're mentioning here, do you get a lot of people coming moving into the state from other states to work in the oil and gas and petroleum space?
Well, we've had, if you go back and you look in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, the economy of the rest of the world was in the tank in 2009 and 10. And really, the world came to North Dakota because the Bakken was the first oil shale play. We had the economic boom going on in the country. We were very fortunate that we were able to bring workers in. People from all over the world showed up here. Investors from all over the world showed up here, developers, builders. We needed those people to build the infrastructure and build the communities and be able to cover the workforce needs that we had. So we continue to see people really from all over, and really what it's proven is that even in a rural place like North Dakota, if you provide jobs and opportunity and a career path, people will move here, and young people have moved here, and have brought their families here. And we're building schools now rather than closing schools. We are building communities and at a very fast pace, and we're seeing a tremendous boom in the baby business in Western North Dakota and across the state. So it's good stuff. Good challenges.
Yeah, for sure. No, that definitely sounds great. And the fact that this industry could bring such a strong community sense is also, I definitely did not know that that was the case. So that's quite interesting. And then, so you mentioned all the different types of people that are brought in. What about now with the change in technology, with the AI boom, with the robotics? How has that affected, or has it affected the industry in any shape or form?
Well, we are a 100% technology industry, and I think to your previous question, what's the big unknown about the oil and gas industry? This is a high tech industry. Uh, we 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 employ tens of thousands of people, and technology is the number one component of what we do in the oil and gas industry. And how this has evolved over the past decade is simply amazing. So, your well sites now are high tech. They're Many of them are remote. They're the sensors. It's safer. You don't have to be out driving in and out there all the time. And still, the most dangerous place in the oil and gas industry is in your vehicle on the way to and from a location.
Mm.
Um, so we need more automation, more technicians, more instrumentation people. We need those high tech careers because we are evolving, and the ability to drill a well 2 miles down and 2 miles out. Now it's 3 miles out. It's 4 miles out. That all is a function of technology. So AI is a supplement to those technology advancements, and it's critically important. So, the future workers are going to have to fully understand and embrace and engage AI, and I think AI is going to become so helpful in advancing our ability to recover oil out of the Bakken shale. It's also going to be so beneficial in understanding, really the critical components uh, of, of of each well and how it interacts and the longevity of it. So I don't see it as a a risk for us going forward. I see it as a benefit. I see it as allowing younger people with technological skills to engage more readily in the oil and gas industry, and work from environments where and how they want to work. Like today's workforce likes to choose those parameters, and so I see it's a great opportunity, and the technology of us being able to produce oil and gas using AI is really, really critical as we move forward in the world and ensuring that our nation is an energy dominant nation of energy supply. So we need to continue embracing advancements in technology. And that's, as I indicated, this industry is all about technology because we had no idea how to get oil out of shale for 70 years. We knew there was oil in that shale. We just couldn't figure it out until the early 2000s when we figured it out in North Dakota. And now the rest of the country and the world are utilizing that same technology. So, what's next is the big question.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's very interesting that you are saying that the oil and gas industry is a technology company or technology industry, which you're right, it is definitely from the standpoint. I think sometimes we just don't think of technology. We start thinking of it as more of digital technology, at least in the space that I'm in, probably our listeners as well. And so I'm curious, one of the other things is that a lot of people assume that oil and gas takes longer to make decisions and can sometimes feel a little bit inefficient. And I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the maybe accepted inefficiencies in the energy business that people have simply learned to live with? And then also, what have you seen with people kind of making decisions on making changes with these inefficiencies?
Well, it's kind of a fascinating question, really, because I don't. I think the industry itself sees itself as pretty visionary and pretty reactive. Um, and the things that take time, of course, are regulatory permitting and processes and those types of things. But our ability when we look at efficiency, when we started drilling a well in the Bakken that was 2 miles down and 2 miles out, it was taking us about 43 days.
Hmm.
Today it takes 7 or 8, and now we can go out 3 miles and 4 miles. So you're drilling down 2 miles and out 3 or 4 miles, and you're doing that in maybe 10 to 12 days versus having separate wells. Historically, you would have had to have all separate wells, and there would have been wells everywhere in the landscape. So your environmental footprint has shrunk to a tiny fraction of what it was in the past. You're recovering more oil out of the shale from a bigger area with a smaller footprint. So um, the efficiency is not only in that space, but it's in really all of the spaces of how you move, how you mobilize and move oil off rock, how you get it to the surface, and how you get it to market. So I think the area where industry is maybe slower to react today than it was before is that this is a major, almost a manufacturing type operation today in the Bakken. We know where the oil primarily is. We know how to get it out. It's just how do you get better and more efficient at it? So it takes time to react to, for instance, today with the Iran situation, oil is $99 today, $69 4 weeks ago today. So industry doesn't just all of a sudden ramp up activity like it may in the May of 25, 35 years ago, because these are long planning processes. There's a lot of technology involved. The industry moves a little bit slower to react to situational pricing in world markets like it maybe did in the past. So that would be one area where I think that we're probably slower to react than what the world thinks we are. These are big projects, $8 to $10 million a well. You're not just going to decide today that you're flipping the switch, and tomorrow you're gonna add 3 more drilling rigs and therefore increase your production. You may be able to increase some of the production that you've had previously, wells online, but in terms of drilling new wells, it takes a long time to put your plan together, get your operations team together, because it's got to be done efficiently and cost competitive to every other basin in the world today. And I think that's one of the big differences as well, is that the basins are so competitive for where the dollars are going to go. So in
Hmm.
North Dakota, we have to be very cognizant of our price structure versus the Permian Basin or the Anadarko Basin, or now the world, frankly. You've got um, Argentina, Turkey, you've got friendly nations that are utilizing shale Bakken type technology to produce oil from shale. So producers can go there and weigh their risks of their political risks of being a multinational company, but those risks all have a cost benefit ratio.
And so kind of going back to that first point that you mentioned there, and you mentioned how it is now easier to drill deeper wells, wider wells, than it was, and faster to do that than it was in the past. Is it due to data precision or just better machinery?
Well, I think you've answered both of those questions. When a play gets like a Bakken play gets to the scale in which it is, you begin to the service industry begins to develop machinery that is just designated and knows how to drill through the type of rock in North Dakota. Uh, the types of drilling rigs change, the efficiency, the completion technologies. So those efficiencies are all just learned and particularly focused for this play and this shale and this rock, and you know how to do it. And really, what you do every day, you just get better at it. And I've often said that, during the downturns is frankly when our industry, and specifically what I've seen in North Dakota, we've really gotten better and better during downturns because the engineers have a little bit of time on their hands. The accountants have a little bit of time on their hands. So the accountants sharpen up their pencils and get their erasers out and make us more efficient and cost competitive. But the engineers go to work to figure out, we came out of COVID with people talking about U-turn wells where you drill up a mile and then back a mile. And, we got box wells where you go up a mile, over a mile, and down a mile. And you turn a box with this pipe. Think about a steel pipe 30 feet long that goes up, over, down, and forms a box. Never in their wildest imagination could we have done that just 10 years ago. And that's what happens when efficiency and engineering kind of meet that crossroads and you say, okay, how do I get more oil out of this? Is a piece of Bakken shale, and it's much like the cement in your driveway. It's very dense. The oil and the water don't move through the porosity and permeability because it's very poor, but it's full of oil, and we got to figure out how to get more oil out of that. And over 25 years in the Bakken, we've gotten about 15% of the oil out of this rock in any
Mhm.
given in any given well area. So the great challenge today, we call it Bakken 2.0, crack the code, is how do we get the next 15%? We cannot walk away leaving 85% of the oil in the ground in this world-class resource. No other shale play in the world has figured it out. We are all focused today on how do we get 15% more of the oil out of this place, which for a state like North Dakota, that means another 20 to 40 years of increased jobs and economic opportunity, wealth creation, We fund over 50% of our state's tax revenues come for oil and gas production taxes. So this is not an oil and gas issue in North Dakota. This is a state of North Dakota issue. How do we get more oil out of this rock? We we cannot walk away from this prize because it's an incredible resource that our state has, and we are very blessed to have it. So we got to figure out how to. The wells are drilled, the infrastructure's in place. So now the engineers got to figure out how to make the next step work.
Yeah, and interesting from that perspective. Are the engineers between different companies working on this in sync, or are they kind of all working in isolation on this?
We have actually created a Bakken 2.0 pilot project where companies are working individually but collectively trying to share data because there are so many moving parts, and we're better together. And if we work together, and historically companies will do their own thing, work on their own process, but everybody's pretty well got their footprint laid out in the Bakken today. There's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions, so if one gets better technology, it really helps everybody if the competitors also begin using that, because then the service companies are the ones that do the work. And as they get better, then everybody wins. So I think that industry is doing a much better job in this environment today of working together and finding these solutions. And we've got some great opportunities for them to share experiences. The Williston Basin Petroleum Conference is coming up May 19th to the 21st in Bismarck, North Dakota. It's a world-class international conference that brings together about 2,500 industry and other folks to come into North Dakota, into Bismarck. And
Okay.
all the great speakers are coming, the CEOs are coming, the government leaders are coming,
Mhm.
but also scientists and the geologists and the business development people and the engineers and all of the folks that have a stake in this are coming to share. We've got over 80 speakers. These speakers are dialing into. We know what the hot topics are. We know what the big issues are. So they're coming to listen and learn from each other. It's a tremendous opportunity. We get people from all over the world here for this event, and it's really an opportunity to share and network on ideas, just as you discussed.
Okay, yeah, no, that is very interesting. Honestly, yeah, good to know that this event is happening.
Williston Basin Petroleum Conference 2026. If you Google it, you will find it. It's an incredible event, and it's really been this technology showcase for generations. Now
Mhm.
it's also a business development opportunity.
Yeah, like a networking and
Yep.
connection for sure. And so, I mean, looking at all of this and looking at the workforce development and the talent pipelines, what skills do you think will matter the most for the next generation of the oil and gas sector, or just generally for the people of North Dakota?
North Dakota has really engaged on career and technical centers for middle school and high school kids. We've got some great uh, 2 year schools that have focused on these types of skill sets for kids, and um, there still are so many opportunities. So I think that those we're always going to need engineers and geologists and CEOs and accountants and everything else. But to me, that skilled labor component, where today's young people want to get to work fast and then continue learning throughout their career. To me, that's the big opportunity, and where we're seeing a movement of really high level kids coming out of high school now looking to move into these career trades. As I mentioned, automation, instrumentation, all of those different utilization of AI, utilization of drone technology, uh, obviously diesel mechanics, those type of people
Mhm.
with any type of skills. We're seeing young men and women going into those fields because it's tremendous opportunities. You get a job immediately when you start college, and you can, you know, go to work and get paid learning, and then
Yeah.
uh, throughout your education. So it's a great opportunity. It's always a big step for those changes, but I think that we've really crossed that threshold in North Dakota, where parents are now embracing. That's very important for parents to embrace their kids going into those type of programs.
Yeah, into those fields. And finally, what gives you optimism about the future of the energy industry?
Well, the optimism comes with all the young people that we continue to attract into this industry. We have got the best and the brightest from across the world. Those people move to North Dakota. They make North Dakota a home. They thrive in industry. They thrive in their community, and nobody has to move to North Dakota. So when they move here, they choose to on their own. They generally want to stay after they're here for a while, and I think that's the great optimism is that. We're growing as an industry, or growing as a we're getting younger as an industry, and the future is very bright. And we gotta, obviously, as you see, the importance of oil in the world today. Nobody can wake up and think that we're gonna fossil fuels is not going away. It's more important today probably than it has been any time. Um, and you can just see that on the world stage. We're all watching it play out. The importance of just getting oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. How important is that to Asia and the rest of that part of the world? And frankly, it's important to us because it directly reflects what happens here in North Dakota and across America. But we need to continue to be energy dominant. We can only do these things if America and North America, frankly, are energy dominant, and we dictate the future supply of oil and gas. Those resources are critical to the world, and we must be the one to utilize and produce responsibly, produce and move forward with our natural resources. So I think that has really elevated in the last several years.
Yeah, for sure. We can not get away from the importance of oil and gas and petroleum industries, at least not yet. And so thank you so much, Ron. We really appreciate having you here. Tell us a little bit where we can find you and North Dakota Petroleum Council.
Sure, you can look us up, just North Dakota Petroleum Council and the North Dakota Petroleum Council Foundation if you want to find out more about our education, our outreach, and our conservation programs. But the big one, I think, is people across the globe have interest in the Williston Basin Petroleum Conference 2026. Just Google that, and that is an uplifting event, and people come and enjoy it, and they come back time after time. We only hold it every other year, so 2026 is our year. It's hosted in Regina in the off year, so it's an international conference, and we've got great participation from Canadian provinces and across, but other people from across the world as well. So, thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you, Ron.